Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Christina from Sona, and I've got our VP, Paul Watson, here today to talk a little bit more about Sona Comms. So, thank you so much for joining another session that is a bit more product focused. We're really happy to see some amazing feedback for these sessions, so keep it coming in case you want us to do more. Suggestions are always welcome. I think we have some webinar experts with us, but we also have a couple new people. So just for everyone, please feel free to use the chat on the side. Ask questions for Tom. Ask questions for Paul. Why did I call you Tom? Ask questions for Paul. Let us know anything you would like to see, and I'm sure Paul will be able to show you. He'll focus mostly on comms, but he's told me that he's going to show a tiny bit of HR. So if anyone missed the previous session, there's a little bit of that. This session is going to be recorded, so don't worry about having to drop out early or anything like that. We'll make sure to get it on email for everyone, as well as a little summary. If there's anything we won't be able to cover today, because we are trying to keep the session around 45 minutes, we will absolutely reach out. Let's set up a call if you want to see more details. I think that covers everything. Obviously, questions in the chat will be there. And then I'll let Paul take over. Let's get it.
Thanks, Christina, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. As Christina mentioned, I'm going to be talking through Sona Comms and engagement. And the reason why I might be showing a little bit about HR is because for us, engagement doesn't just sit on an employee app. It's about how we truly connect with your team members, your employees, and ensure that there is open dialogue both to and from head office and management teams and from employees as well. Why am I in this chair? Why am I talking about it? So before I got into workforce management solutions, I was a learning development consultant. And I spent a number of years looking at communication skills and ensuring that people were engaged and felt part of an organization. An engaged workforce will drive discretionary effort. If employees, team members are happy about their job, if they feel included, then you will see that extra effort being put in. And what I'm going to talk you through today is how we can sort of streamline some of those comms channels, and also introducing some of the functionality that we see in our HR module. Many of you will have already experienced this or seen this, but there are some new features that we've released recently that obviously if you are a Sona user already, we'd love to talk to you about how we can get those activated for you. So all that being said, I'm going to share my screen, and I think there's going to be a moment in time where you're going to see thousands of me, I'm afraid, while I move from one screen to another. But now what you should hopefully be seeing is my homepage. Now, because comms is such a big thing for us and engagement is such a big thing for us, we want to make this front and center. And I'm going to call out a couple of different scenarios and different examples today. We want to empower your managers. We want them to have a voice. And interestingly, when we speak to our customers and when we speak to end users, there's often this challenge of getting people to use a work-provided comms platform. The big challenge is, how do you get people away from Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups? And how do you centralize comms? So as much as talking about the product today, I want to talk to you a little bit about how you might consider using comms effectively. I know many of you already have this sort of completely buttoned down. But equally in the chat, if there are ideas that you want to share, please do share them with us, because I think comms itself, it's old wine in new bottles. If you look at most employee surveys, the highest ranking challenge that most employees will suggest is comms. So how do we make these employees feel part of the picture? As a manager logging in, front and center for those end users in the homepage, I immediately get welcomed with the sort of the comms headlines. So up at the top, I can see my resources. Now, something that we've recently launched for one of our customers, and again, this is where we want to accommodate feedback and implement changes as quickly as possible. And in fact, I think one of those customers might be on the call with us today. Their employees use an online learning platform, learning management system. And whilst they can access those via single sign-on in the app, actually, when you're going online and you're completing these courses, it's much easier to be using it in a desktop environment. So we do now have a desktop employee app, which means that these resources here and these single sign-on, I mean, these are just examples of what we can introduce. These can actually be opened up through a web browser to make access a little bit easier. I can also see my newsfeed. So here's a post that's been made 25 minutes ago by an employee called Paul Roberts. I'm going to show you how these sort of interact with each other from both the manager console, as I'm looking at it here, but also from the employee standpoint in the employee app. And then on the right-hand side, I can see my recent messages. So these are messages that have either been sent to groups or one-to-one. And again, we'll dig into how we access those. We've also got these view all buttons here. So if I want to dive into my news feed, I can hit view all, and then it's going to load my feed for me, and I can scroll through and see different posts that have been made over a period of time. And dependent on my access, I can like, I can comment, and if needed to, I could report content. So an important point around comms, we appreciate the introduction of things like profanity filters might be a sensible addition. For some of our customers, they want to avoid that because they want employees to be able to talk within their work product, within their work comms platform, as they would talk in their sort of personal space. And again, this is sort of encouraging employees to move away from point solutions, third-party solutions, which might be harder to manage. But even outside of profanity filters, people can unfortunately be very cruel just using words. So if there is content that needs to be reported on, there is that functionality, and then supporting dashboards where administrators can take action. Moving back to that home page and seeing here my recent messages, in the same way, I can come into view all, and then we can see here where there are messages I haven't yet responded to. And because of my access, I see probably more chat groups than others might do. And if I needed to add a new chat, I can do so up at the top right-hand side. Now, this is a really interesting point. So what we typically find in terms of feedback is when you implement a solution, your employees want to use a product that behaves in the same way that they would use a consumer product itself. If you lock down functionality too much, and a group of employees want to create a chat group in the same way that you would do on WhatsApp or Messenger, but they can't do that, they will naturally migrate to a product which they can do it on. And of course, that's impossible for you to police in terms of new starters coming in and also leavers being exited from groups. So one consideration you might want to make is that whilst you might not want to be completely open and free, by releasing some of the sort of permissions and boundaries, it does allow users to start using the product a little bit more freely. We also see, and I will say this is something I learned many years ago when implementing a comms platform, people need encouragement. So as you're implementing a comms platform, feels a little bit draconian perhaps, but actually talking to the different stakeholders across the organization, your head of marketing, your head of support, your head of operations, whoever it might be, and almost building out a comms diary. Because if those teams are sharing content, then others will see the type of content that is being shared and they will follow suit. You often find employees stand around the sidelines waiting for others to sort of dip their toes in the water, first of all, before they jump in. So by having good content, which is being regularly shared, it really starts to encourage user adoption. We did look at the tasks menu in our last webinar last week in terms of HR. And tasks, for those of you that couldn't make it, are where predominantly system-generated workflows are being activated, to whether that's a probation review or a right-to-work document that's expiring, looking at specific dates. And we can see here we've got this new data that has been received. And as I journey into the employee app, I want to show you how this starts to come to life and how you start to get this very enriched employee integration and engagement through to into the management console as well. So let's go there first. Now, Christina, I might ask you to just jump on to say that you can see my phone screen, because I have shared to a different screen now. You are there?
Yes, I can see.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So now I'm logged in as Paul and I'm in the app itself. Now, as an end user, I want something that is sort of native to me. It needs to behave in the way that I would expect a comms product to behave. What we find is, because for our existing Sona customers, when they're introducing items like comms or payroll or whatever it might be, because you've already got staff usage, because your employees have already got the Sona app downloaded and installed on their devices, we are typically seeing 100% adoption. I will show you some of the dashboards so you can start to see across that adoption what your employees are actually interacting with. But people have already got this device in their pocket, and they've already got the app installed as well, because this is where, as you know, they can come in and clock into their shifts. This is where they can see their holiday, and this is where, if you've got Sona Pay, you can see their pay slips as well. Now, as an employee here, these are my resources. So in the same way that from a manager view, I could see those resources and uploaded documents and single sign-on, I can also access those as an employee, dependent on what my access levels are. At the top left-hand side, my employee profile. When I click into here, and again, this is where we integrate with that sort of employee profile within the HR solution itself. This is where I could come in and update my personal details. Now, something we've introduced recently is a biography. As a learning development consultant, and as I speak to lots of HR professionals, my lifelong ambition, but certainly a vision I've had for many years, is to introduce almost like a closed network LinkedIn for people teams and HR professionals. Because whilst there's always lots of activity around forecasting and scheduling, for me, what's really important is how do you reduce turnover or increase retention, to look at it in a positive light? How do you keep hold of those great team members that you spend time, money, energy in developing? And some of that starts to become surfaced through a simple addition of a biography. So how do we get employees to share about who they are with the business? So entering a biography here, and as we look later at the directory, you can see how that can be surfaced. This is where I could come in and update some of my details. So if I wanted to change my home address, my bank details, etc., you can choose what different options you want your employees to be able to go in and update. I can also come into here and see my documents. And in this example, I've just got two different types of documents: payroll documents and pay slips. But as we introduce those workflows, this could also start to surface documents such as perhaps return to work documents or probation reviews or appraisals. So the capability for your employee to have a version of their employee file within their app itself really starts to give them good visibility of progress. We were talking to an operator yesterday about how they wanted to introduce things like their values and benefits, so their values and behaviors, but also the behavior levels, to start to introduce a sort of a career map for employees, so that if I'm a great communicator or I have good levels of care and attention, I can start to see what are the roles in the business also have those behaviors, and what levels are those behaviors expected to be displayed at, and what training could I therefore start to complete so that I can move myself up into a role or become suitable for a promotion. Feelings check-ins at the end of each shift, every 10 days, or perhaps just push through from the employee, the ability for you to capture how your team members are feeling. Now, I think there's some nervousness about this, but if you're looking at true engagement with your team members, this is something you shouldn't shy away from. You can, of course, choose who gets visibility of this. This might be just shared with your people team. But the ability for you to start understanding how your team members feel and driving an employee net promoter score really starts to give you visibility as to not just those sort of great metrics around absenteeism and retention and all of that good stuff and length of service, but how are they feeling? And for me, the power comes around when we start to correlate that data together and see if there are sort of certain triggers that are perhaps causing downturn in net promoter score or upticks or whatever it might be. So all of this is very configurable. You can have different emojis, different headings in here. I can select the reason, so how I'm feeling, and then what's making me feel that way. So I'm feeling happy, perhaps it's my colleagues, and then I can put some notes in here as well. So this is going to test my typing live now. And as you can see, if there's a wellbeing team phone number that you want to introduce here, you can do so. And I can press submit, and that check-in has been submitted. And as I go back to the manager console, you'll start to see how that starts to build that picture. A recent addition, and for some customers, this is something they want their employees to have access to. For others, they want the managers to control it. Again, totally configurable and optional as to how that gets surfaced. But in this example, as an employee, I can put what my preferred working hours are. Now, there are different iterations of this coming in the pipeline, but where we're seeing this used is if people have got personal commitments outside of sort of core days. So perhaps I'm someone that needs to do the school run on a Tuesday and a Thursday, or I've got a university course on a Monday afternoon. It allows me to start putting in times where I prefer not to work. The next phase of this is where we start talking about unavailability. Like I said, whether you want employees to have access to this or the managers to set this by employee is very much your choice. And employees need to appreciate this isn't contractual, but it does leave that marker on the schedule. So if we're looking at employees being able to inform the business of, hey, here are some times I can't work or I prefer not to work, as the manager is starting to build the schedule, they've already got a note there to say, well, actually, Paul prefers his preferred hours on a Monday are between 10 and 6. So let's see what I can do to accommodate that preference. I'll just pause quickly to check in with Christina to see if there are any questions that have come up so far.
Perfect. So we do have some recommendations from Russ. So he is saying if you'll be changing the initial page to be the home page rather than the roster, so that way you always get a glance at the feed when you opened it, and it's not easily missed. And Sadia also agrees in terms of having visibility, how this feed actually shows up on the app. So I don't know if you can expand a little bit on that.
Yeah, so great question, Russ, and it's one that is in our list to complete, but the homepage being your landing page. The other piece that to add to this is, whilst we can see we've got resources here and latest feed and recent messages, and they've all got their own dedicated menus down on the left-hand side, in the same way, tasks will be something that is available on the homepage as well as preference. So as a manager landing on that homepage when I first log in, I can see the work that I need to, or the actions that I need to take. So if someone's probation period is coming up in the next 90 days, I need to think about scheduling that meeting in, or if their right to work document is expiring. So absolutely, totally aligned with you on that. The next question that you had was around how you make that visible on the app itself. Yeah, so this is something that we've been working on for quite a period of time now, is our manager dedicated app itself, with a release date of second half of this year, which obviously is sort of fast approaching. If not, we're probably on that side of the fence now. We've been very careful about this because we don't believe it is intuitive to just shrink down a web view so that you can see it on an iPhone. Obviously, you can access it via a tablet, but the ability to have sort of much clearer calls to action through a manager interface as a manager app, and also how we want those managers to work within the app itself, because we don't believe that you should have one app downloaded as an employee and one app downloaded as a manager. They should be the same, but you should have sort of added menus or added functionality or the ability to toggle between a manager and an employee view. So more news to follow on that. And as a outcome of this webinar, I will speak to Zach, our head of product, and we will get some timeline shared on that as well.
Amazing. And another question from Russ. Is there anything on the roadmap to be able to capture more formal employee surveys? What do we think?
100%, and actually that's what part of what I'm going to show you today. So those tasks themselves are essentially driven by data that is held. Oh, like Livestorm isn't letting me do something. Oh, what's going on here?
So we still got your...
You got me?
Yes, we can see overdue tasks.
Okay, perfect. So these tasks themselves are driven by data that is being held within the employee profile. And for many of you that are using I'm not sort of trying to dip into HR too much here, but for many of you that are using our HR product, as well as having the sort of the standard forms and pages that you would expect to see in an employee record, it's this ability for us to also build out things like, if I look at disciplinary and grievance, so this is a custom page, and underneath these are custom forms. Now, we could create and generate, Russ, and all that are here, a custom page which is dedicated to surveys. The functionality that we've recently added into Sona is the ability for these to be pushed out to the employee via the chat channel. So I will show you how that gets pushed right now. Up here, I would come in and say request data. This is me pushing it. So if it's set as automated, maybe this is something that's going out every 6 months, every 3 months. I could go in and request data of Alan. In this example, I've got a right to work, and onboarding, return to work, and probation review. So if I select my probation review and create the request, I can either copy a link, send it via an email, or send via chat. And appreciate this could be fully automated. This is maybe where, let's say the employee's right to work document's expiring. The system has pushed out the request for them to upload their latest right to work document, but somehow they've deleted it or lost it. So you need to resend the link, or perhaps this is something that you don't want fully automated and you want to send it. So I could send that via chat. If I just copy the link and then show you in this screen here, what you can see, and actually this is a probation review one, I would click on to fill out that form, and then whatever is in that form or the questions that you might want to surface in the form can be surfaced out to the employee. So how that appears for the employee from an app point of view is, I'm connecting back to my phone. Come on, Apple, you can do it. Okay, so can you see that now?
Not yet. There's no phone yet. It's still interrupted. Let's try it again. Connecting.
Always good fun. Right, so I will shout at my phone in a second, but I'll come back to here now. So if I fill in this form as an employee, that would automatically get pushed back through to my tasks. And that's where we can see down here that some data has been received. Now, once that data has been received, so I'm going to very quickly do this on my phone right now, or in fact, let's just see if I can get that to reactivate. Always good when Apple decides to not let you share your screen. Okay, it's not letting me do that. So across into the employee record here, if I find Paul Roberts as an example, so if Paul has sent some information through to me, I can see the data that's being received. So in this example, there's an onboarding questionnaire. I could view that in here and I could complete that. So if I was happy with this, I could say, yeah, I'm happy. I could review and save it. So a probation review as an example, I could review and save that, and it would then push into the relevant section here. So Paul has already sent their onboarding questionnaire. I can view that, and all of that information that Paul has filled in the system has been captured in here. And actually, Sona's AI agents can create a summary. And in this example, it's given some suggestions of clubs that they might want to join. So this could be a survey, Russ. I've just not got one set up in this example. This could well be a survey where I'm going into the system. I've got a series of different surveys set up as forms, and I can push those out. So whether that's a new menu launch, or if you're in hospitality, or if there's a change to the employee handbook, whatever it might be, you can get that information pushed through.
Amazing.
Right.
Let's check
hope
the
that
phone again.
my phone. Yay! There we go. We're connected again. Brilliant.
Russ also Russ mentioned the push capability is really powerful. It's going to help some of their use cases. And he would like to see how nicely the questions port over to the app. I don't know if you can show us a bit of that.
Yeah, of course. So hopefully you can see my phone screen now.
All good with the phone screen.
Yes, fantastic. Okay, so up at the top here, you can see in my chat. So as an employee, we've obviously got this sort of chat menu down here. This can have your own branding on it, have its own name. You can have multiple different chat profiles as well that can send out different types of forms. So if I click into here, these were the ones that I sent. So please, can you send your latest right to work document? So if I view that, it's going to open it up here. I can fill out my form and off I go. And what we could do perhaps on the back of this is we can set up an example of a survey. But if I've got a probation review form, I could go in here, fill in my probation review. All of these questions are obviously completely configurable. The idea being is that we build out all of your processes and policies within the solution once it gets pushed through from chat. So a great example of this to that onboarding one is if you've got employees that are being added into Sona via an applicant tracking system, or even if you're just creating them as an employee within Sona, as the employee logs into the Sona app for the very first time, they could immediately be sent that onboarding questionnaire where they can fill in a little bit more detail about themselves, and that can then get pushed back into their employee profile. That also drives reports, which will, when we go back into the manager app, we'll show you how those sort of come to life. So obviously, holiday itself is a core piece of Sona, but the ability to view holiday, to request holiday, as many of you know, we support holiday in hours and days, etc. And I can also see my latest payslip in the app. Because I can add in Face ID in this example, because I'm emulating it via my laptop, it's asking me to put in my fingerprint. Are we back? Yes, we're back. Fantastic. Yes, what was the question? Sorry.
So if you could, if you use the request data functionality, can you report on the responses?
Yes. So whilst I'm in the manager app itself, so this is where we start looking at those. I've funnily enough had this exact conversation this morning with Zach. So we can build out dashboards which shows the amount of requests that have been sent out, what documents have been received, what documents have not been filled out. But the key thing about tasks here, and this is where this becomes very powerful in my opinion, is the audience that sees these tasks increases based on your workflows. So I know some of you, we would have had these conversations prior, but as an example, if Alan's right to work document's expiring in 2 months, that could automatically send out the right to work document upload request to Alan. If Alan doesn't do anything on that, that can send a escalated note through to, I'm logged in as Billy here, an escalated note through to Billy, but it also might want to send it through to the HR team. If Alan doesn't take any action for a further 30 days, let's say, you might want that task to go out to a wider audience again. But again, in terms of dashboards for reporting to see what's been sent, who's been sent, what documents, what's been received, what's been approved. We've also got dynamic reports as well, where as we start to get feedback and as people start to fill in their responses, we can see what's been filled in, when it was filled in, and we can also draw these AI summaries up at the top here. So the AI summaries are looking at the responses that have been completed, but we can also build AI summaries on top of the AI summaries or on top of the dashboards. So if you've sent out your 6-month reviews or a pulse survey and the feedback that you're getting, so this is the AI summary based on these answers, but if you perhaps you send that out to 100 people, you actually want to get a summary of all the responses. So let's say it's something about training and you've sent out your reviews and lots of people have said that they want extra training on commercial acumen, time management, and caring for people. It can then start to build out a summary in regards to those sort of responses, so that you can start to inform a training roadmap and a training calendar, as an example. I hope that answers the question for you. But yes, absolutely, everything reportable. Now, the next task, now that I've just got my internet back, oh yes, I can get back in. So we were looking at that form. We were looking at obviously the fact that, you know, we can click into here. There are conversations about whether or not we make those Sona assistants. Oh, it's still showing me that I've got no internet connection. I know why. It's because I've switched my Wi-Fi off on my phone to try and tether it to my laptop just now when everything else went wrong. And I'll come back to that. Sorry, organized chaos. It's not usually like this, I promise. So the other piece that I wanted to share with you on here is, as well as sort of obviously sending out those forms and those comms pieces, is the ability for us to send out, well, we've done the well-being check-ins, is to send out praise as well. So either from the schedule itself, where against one of the shifts, I could choose to send a message, or alternatively, within our retention area, we can send staff praise. And this gives you that capability to load into Sona your company values. So in here, if I go to send praise, I've got a few examples in here. So I might say in it together, and the manager's got the ability to send a message through. And in the same way, you can do that from the shift. You can have some pre-created messages in here. Some people love that. Some people feel that it's perhaps, you know, how genuine does it feel if you're just sending a sort of copy and paste style message to employees? But equally, you know, not everyone's a wordsmith. So, you know, if there is the ability to send a message out which is supporting that value or that behavior, and then they can still make amendments in here as well and send that through, then the employee via the app, just when it was all working so perfectly. And what I might have to do is go into here, and this is not going to look as nice, but here you go. It gives you the same concept, but I'm now showing it as an app on my desktop. I can go into chat and I can see the praise that I've received. I get a nice confetti cannon, and then I get my my message there. And of course, all of this is fully reportable within Sona. So I can start to look at my insights dashboards. And if I look at my, a little bit further down, if I look at my well-being and praise, I can see both how my team are feeling from a well-being point of view, and I can also see the praise that is being shared to employees. Now, something that's coming in the next quarter is the ability for employees to share peer-to-peer praise. And for me, that again starts to unlock this concept of like a closed network LinkedIn, because as you're starting to look across your employee base, you want to understand where those hidden gems are. You know, who are the next leaders within your organization? Who are the next managers? And because your team are both sending praise to each other and receiving praise, I think, you know, there is absolutely added value, equal value, not just to those employees that are receiving praise from others, but those that are giving praise to others and recognizing greatness across your organization. So if we start to build out a dashboard where it's taking in all of these different elements, length of service, promotions, time in role, and then also how people are viewing that individual across your organization, you start to get a really rich picture of your team, those individual employees. And perhaps that is one of the types of forms that you want to send out, or perhaps as part of your review, you are asking your team members whether or not they'd like to be considered for a promotion, whether they, and appreciate if you're single site, perhaps this isn't as relevant, but for those where maybe if they relocate and they're willing to relocate, they would do so if it meant that they could move into a different role or a more senior role. Any other questions, Christina, while I try and get my flow back?
We do have one from Sadia. So for annual leave feature in days and hours, there is a different visibility on the app. So for annual leave bookings in days, there's a calendar view and staff can select their working, non-working days. She's highlighting that there is no such options for annual leave bookings in hours. And if there's anything that's to be added in the future, similar to the days view.
Yeah, so I think that's a configuration setting. So let's set up a call to cover that off. There's lots of different options in terms of holidays and hours, because I must admit, I come from a world where holidays are either booked in days, or even though holidays might be booked in days, the system knows what the average hours are per day. So employees aren't having to type those hours in. But I know that if next week, as an example, I want Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday off, and I want to take 21 hours off across those 3 days, I still need to put in the days that I want to take off, not just the hours I want to take off. So looks like it could be a configuration change that we need to make for you. So on the back of this, we'll make sure someone makes contact with you to pick that up.
Exactly. So keep an eye on your inbox after this. I think that's it for now for questions, Paul. So I know we're approaching the end of the session. So again, encouraging everyone, if there's anything specific you'd like Paul to go through, we can definitely cover it.
Yeah, fantastic. So like last couple of things I wanted to sort of touch on in terms of comms. So within the solution itself, we looked at that biography. As your employees start to build these out, this is where this surfaces. So you may well know that within Sona itself, we have a directory. I think this is really powerful, certainly when you're looking at employees maybe who are new to the business and wanting to understand who their team members are. And of course, these echo permissions in terms of visibility, but the ability for me to look in here, look at an employee, read a little bit about them if they've updated their biography, make sure they've updated a profile picture. Adoption is sort of like a key piece here, because as you can see, this is my demo environment. And if I was perhaps an HR manager, I wouldn't be feeling particularly happy about this because I've not got images. And as I click into here, I've not got biographies. So how do I find out if the system is being used effectively? Are people using this functionality? And again, we've got dashboards that can support that. So a comms and engagement dashboard where we can look at usage metrics. We can look at that. So as you're probably familiar with in terms of our dashboards, you can look at the various different filters across the top. I think what's really important for me, and a filter that we can add into here, is anyone between the age of 18 and 30, maybe a little bit past that, but they would be considered as sort of digitally native. they're quite used to using apps. They're quite used to using this sort of functionality, and they're probably the easier employee range to get in contact with. But what about those people that might be older? How do we make sure that we're communicating with them effectively? And how do we make sure that they're feeling engaged? What about employees that have been with the business for longer than 12 months? Are they as engaged now as they were when they first started? And even then looking at things like gender split. So it's an interesting concept, and it was a phrase that I came across a few years back called positive discrimination. But if, as an example, you want to encourage more male or female employees to apply for managerial roles, and you know the behavior. So as someone that's spent a lot of time looking at engagement, what you typically see for female users of engagement products, they are typically more active from 7 o'clock onwards. Well, this was, and I am sort of going back a couple of years here, so these stats may well have moved slightly. But from 7 o'clock onwards, that's typically when you see more female users of comms platforms. Male users typically seem to be more active at various points during the day, but typically have a slightly shorter dwell time. Whereas female workers traditionally would show that from 7 p.m. onwards, they would start to use social apps and spend longer using those products, almost sort of like catching up on the day. But if you know you've got that captive audience, and let's say you want to start promoting some more female managers, then that's a great time to perhaps be sharing posts within feeds to make sure that you're hitting the audience at the right time for the fact that there's managerial roles that that people could apply for, or male roles, depending on how you want to use the system. The part that we got cut off from was when I was talking about news feeds and behavior of news feeds. So as an employee being shepherded into those chats and news feed groups, as a head office, you might want one feed which communicates out to all of the employees where you can share information. But then if you have satellite sites, perhaps those news feeds, they've got slightly less rigid controls in them. So employees can share. And we see this is where it brings some really good competitive spirit. If employees or if chefs or whatever they might be, if they're able to post images of a new menu item that they've introduced, or one of our customers recently launched an ice cream, and as part of that launch, they were all sharing how they were making the ice cream and variations of this ice cream. I forget the name of it now, but it was sort of like can't remember what that McDonald's ice cream was called, which sort of got loads of social attention recently on TikTok. But that idea of having this sort of playful competition, which isn't being driven from head office, it's actually employees creating this amongst themselves because they know that they've got other team members looking at their productivity and their output. So yeah, sorry, it just reminded me then of that was where I got cut off from when my power cut off. Any other questions at all before we start to draw to a close?
No additional questions so far. Okay,
fantastic. So look, for me, comms and engagement, it is all part and parcel of the same product. It lives within every element of Sona. We are always looking at how we can improve that functionality. Many of you will have spoken to the team at various points about our agentic functionality and our agents. Something that is being launched imminently within the app is the ability for employees to ask questions of an AI agent. So what that effectively means is like a chatbot. What's the maternity policy? What's the sickness policy? And interestingly, the maternity policy is deemed as the most stress-related policy to be asked for by employees, because there is unfortunately still a feeling of, if I'm a female employee and I'm asking what the maternity policy is that going to limit my career progression because I'm either pregnant or thinking about getting pregnant? But if as an employee I can ask that of an app and it brings back that information to me, based on my contract, based on my length of service, not just what's the company policy, what does it mean for me? It really empowers employees. What we've also recognized as well is that not everyone in care and hospitality is English as a first language. So the fact that you can ask the questions within your own first language and the response you get back is in your own first language. So in terms of onboarding, and ensuring that everyone has the right information, this becomes hugely powerful, and something that I think over the next 3 to 6 months, as any of you that have attended any of our AI webinars and presentations recently, you can see the progress that is being made there, not just by Sona, but by AI as product tools across all industries. But the functionality and the information it's unlocking is incredible. So thank you so much for your time. Sorry about the interruption. As Christina said, she's going to ship me a generator, but I'm glad you all held on, and I was glad I was able to get back online and finish that off with you. But if anyone has any questions on this, if anyone wants to talk more, obviously get in touch. You can also email me, paul@getsona.com. I love talking about engagement. I love talking about employee well-being. So anything we can do to help. And equally, if you've got some ideas, you're the experts as well. We want to hear from you, and anything we can add into the roadmap that will really move the dial, we will be more than happy to entertain and do.
Exactly. So thank you so much for sticking with us. As mentioned, I'll be editing out the more difficult bits, but thank you for staying calm, rejoining us, and for delivering this excellent session. I will see you all in your inbox, most likely first, and then I'll keep you updated on our next sessions. So thank you. And with that, we'll be ending. Goodbye.
Thanks
Enjoy the
all.
rest of your day.
Goodbye.